They are young Black professionals who are doing big things. So each panelist will have 5 minutes to share their story, their journey, testimony, and kind of a little bit about their career and how they got there. Now, for those who don't know, let me tell you briefly like who I am, how this panel is going to go, uh, and then we'll get it pushing. So my name is Dr. A.K. Sterling. My students call me Fearless Leader. My friends call me Batman, and well, my kids call me Commander Daddy. Though I now have a Ph.D. In English literature, emphasis in African American literature and rhetoric, and I'm part of the faculty here at MSJC College, also a member of UGMA. I started my educational journey back in elementary school by attending special ed classes. And ironically, that didn't leave me feeling very special. So by the time I got to middle school, I gave up. But the good news was that after a series of suspensions and expulsions, I managed to finesse my way and fumble through high school, right? And I graduated valedictorian of a continuation school. And then 21 years ago, I went to community college. And it was there that I found my capacity for growth. I found out that I could write. I found out that I had something to offer the world. But unfortunately, I ended up taking a semester off. This semester off turned into 6 years. Later, I got tired of peddling fast food and working in warehouses, and I decided to go back to college. I wasn't a business major anymore, and I was much older than most of the people in my class, but I had a renewed mindset. And I was intent to impact the lives of others, like my English and Black history teachers. So after a bunch of prereqs and 2 more colleges, I transferred to UCR in 2010. It was there I got my BA, my MA, and my PhD by 2018. But I've been teaching since 2013. So that's my abbreviated superhero story, origin story. But the real version had way more sleepless nights and protest naps during the day. Anyhow, that's what brings us here today, right? I finally and I firmly believe there's 3 things that helps us succeed. One is you need to be able to imagine yourself somewhere. 2, you need help and mentorship to get there. And 3, you got to work hard once you're there, right? So I think the first one was so important because people are going to try something if they can't see themselves there or if they don't see a possible pathway. And so that's exactly why we have this panel, is because I was 25 before I saw young Black folks doing certain things, right? Getting their PhDs and MDs. And matter of fact, some of the people on this panel are some of the very ones that inspired me when I was in community college. And so it's that feeling, right? It's that understanding that I wanted to share with every young Black mind that I can, right? And so luckily, I had some dope friends who agreed to pull up for Starbucks gift cards, right? One of them said they didn't want Starbucks, but I said, listen, $10 is going to go way further at Starbucks than Target. So talking to you, Sandra. So that's feeling is what I want to share. The other thing that brings us here is Black History Month, right? Which came from Negro History Week, Carter G. Woodson, and since 1976 has been designated February for us, right? Now, one of my problems with this at first was it felt like all of our accomplishments or contribution or value was getting relegated, compartmentalized, trivialized by putting us, by just giving us February. Now, what I ended up doing 5 years ago was I wrote a poem kind of outlining my critique and my frustration with the month itself. And so one of the things that I ended up asking was, what if Black History Month covered more than just the basics, right? What if we didn't just talk about the same 5 people? What if we didn't talk about the same 3 time periods? I asked questions like, what if we celebrated, could we celebrate the present, right? And a future that's not tied to torment. I asked questions like, whose life did you impact while being Black and refusing to crack? And so in it, I argued that we should both, pay homage, pay reverence to the past, but to also see ourselves in this kind of tradition of Black excellence, or just Black resilience, Black attainability. Like I was talking about people like Jada Pinkett, to, James Baldwin, Erica Edwards, Tupac, right? I'm talking about everybody. So that was the bottom line. That was the critique. Like, we are Black history. What if we saw what we did is that kind of value? So this panel is a natural progression of that critique, in a way that these 10 people on the panel are all Black history in the making, but also my hope is that they ignite that same realization in you, right? Like it was ignited in me. So basically, that's why we're here. And yeah, I hope that this is a blessing and useful. So without further ado, we're going to introduce a good friend, Aaron McAllister, Esquire. He's a criminal defense attorney in LA. And take us away, Aaron.
I just want to say thanks, Alex, for having me. Thanks for putting this event together. My name is Aaron McAllister. Like Alex said, I am a criminal defense lawyer in Los Angeles. My background, so when I grew up, I have a pretty unique background. I have, my dad had a group home when we were growing up. So the people that lived with us were basically kids who had felonies, right? So kids who had committed felonies, the courts would send them to live with us. And that was basically my roommates growing up. We had at a certain point in time, every single kid in the group home was on honor roll, like 3.5 or higher GPA. So it gave me a unique perspective on the criminal justice system. And I saw people that got arrested or committed crimes. I saw that they were just regular people. I just saw them as friends and mentors a lot of times as I was growing up. So that was framing my perspective at a young age of like 9 or 10. Fast forward to me going to college. When I first got to college, I went to UC Irvine for undergrad. And my major starting out was computer engineering. And the reason why I chose computer engineering was because I was good at typing, which actually has nothing to do with engineering. So I was kind of in college, and my goal was just to graduate from college, but I just wasn't interested in the classes that I was taking. I was doing okay, but I just didn't really like what I was doing. And I ended up this was about my sophomore, maybe junior year in college. I ended up going to dinner with my mom's friend's daughter. And she had just graduated from Howard Law School. She had married her husband, who she met also at Howard Law School. They were both lawyers. They're only a couple years older than me. That was my first time ever even meeting a lawyer. Like Alex was saying, like being able to imagine yourself somewhere. I saw somebody who was about 5 to 10 years older than me, of a young Black male, and they were lawyers. I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't even really understand what lawyers did. But at that dinner, they were explaining to me like, oh, they loved law school. They told me a lot about Howard. They told me like what it takes to get there, but they told me in a way that kind of encouraged me. Like they didn't say how hard it was, or didn't want to discourage me at all. They just said like, no, I could do it. You could do it. They just uplifted me and kind of became my mentors, unbeknownst to me. Like I didn't even really have any mentors before that, but I got his number and just stayed in contact with him, and he just kind of like guided me through the process of going to law school. Another thing that was happening at that time, I had an older brother who had a scholarship to play football at Boise State, and he was a starting running back, and he ended up getting a case for selling weed. So he got a felony case for selling weed, and he lost his scholarship, lost his position on the football team, and he could have went to the NFL. The guy that was behind him actually did go to the NFL. I just saw how this felony changed his life for like the rest of his life. Like he didn't go to the NFL, and I just saw the struggles that he had even after he served his sentence. But I remember something that stuck with me is he was saying that the public defender didn't even know his name. And like, he didn't know what he looked like. He would come into court and just kind of, I don't know if this guy is here or not. And he'd have to raise his hand and say, hey, it's me. So just with a lawyer like that, he wasn't comfortable taking his case to trial. He kind of just felt pressured into taking a plea deal. So those two things combined with like my brother's experience, combined with being raised in a group home, combined with meeting the lawyers, it just kind of all connected at once. and made me really passionate about wanting to go to law school and wanting to be a criminal defense attorney. So I ended up going to Howard, which is a school that my mentor went to. Everything that he did, I did. He told me to take the LSAT. I took the LSAT. He told me he went to Howard, loved it. That's the only school I wanted to apply to. I had I got more mentors, and they said, oh, maybe you should apply to more than one school. And I was like, but I only want to go to Howard. So I specifically followed this guy because I saw where he was, and I saw, like, I want to do exactly what he's doing. So once I got to law school, I loved it. I loved Howard. I loved DC. And I actually had an internship with the public defender's office. And when I was in undergrad, we heard these statistics about like Black men being more likely to go to prison than to go to college. I also saw statistics about how many Black men are incarcerated and things like that. But it didn't hit me until I actually went to the jail. And I went to the jail for probably 3 times a week for a year. Every time I went to the jail, I saw nothing but Black men in cages. And like I was in DC, it was maybe 50 to 60% Black, but it was just crazy to me that we were basically 100% of the jail population. So it just made me really passionate about criminal defense and wanting to save as many people as I could. So I think that's one of the cool things about being a lawyer is you could really literally save somebody's life. Like one of my first clients, he was facing about 45 years. When I first started my law firm, there was a client that I basically took on his case pro bono. I mean, I didn't charge him a lot, if anything. But he was about the same age as me. We were very, like, when I met him, I was like, we were instantly friends, right? But he was around the same age as me, but I would just see him in the jail cell and me not. And we ended up taking the case to trial, but it was just, the stress and the pressure was really big because if we lost, he'd be sitting in a jail for 45 years to life. But we ended up winning his case, and it was just like, there's no feeling like it. Like, we were in the courtroom crying. And I didn't want to cry in front of like a crowd of people, but I couldn't help it. I looked over at him, and he has more tears than I do. So we ended up hugging and stuff. We went back to lockup, and we were just dancing and jumping up and down, just running around in circles. But it was like the best feeling in the world. So I just think that it's a very, very rewarding career. To me, it's something like way bigger than money. Like, to give somebody their freedom, I think there's nothing like it. And I just really appreciate having mentors, and to be able to see somebody in a position, like having that Black mentor and see like this young Black man is doing something that I want to do. It just made it like real to me that I could envision, I could see myself doing it too. Which is probably why I followed him in every way, to the same school, same everything, same teachers and everything. But yeah, I guess that's my 5 minutes. But yeah, it's definitely a doable career. It's very rewarding. And if you believe you can do it, you can do it.
Next, we have Aaron's sister, right, in my boo thing, Miss Amy Esther McAllister, Esquire. She's a deputy county counsel in San Bernardino, and I will give it over to her.
Thanks, Alexander. So as he said, my name is Amy McAllister. I am Aaron's sister. I'm also an attorney. I also went to Howard. Clearly, we grew up in the same household, but my experience was different than his. So I decided when I was 14 that I wanted to be a politician. And in my adolescent mind, before I could become a politician, I had to become an attorney. And before I could become an attorney, I had to graduate with a degree in political science. So I went to Cal, go Bears, and I had decided that I wanted to be a juvenile delinquency attorney. So I took the LSAT, got a good score, ended up going to Howard because at that point in time, Aaron and I's sister-in-law was at Howard, and I felt like that would be extra support. And of course, Aaron had already gone through, and he was already in DC. So I felt like I would still get that mentorship and support that I needed while being in law school. I would also note when I took the LSAT, I didn't know how to study. So I needed my hand to be held and took either Kaplan or Princeton Review bar prep, not bar prep, but LSAT prep, which helped me study for the LSAT. So fast forward, I go to Howard University School of Law, or as we call it, Hustle. And just being in DC was a dope experience in and of itself, because you're in an environment where there's just professionals everywhere, and a lot of them are Black professionals. So being a Black professional is a norm. And then on top of that, Howard's an HBCU, an historically Black college university. So you're able to see a diverse group of Black people that you're going to school with. Like one of the students was a diplomat's son, another student whose like father invented Sirius radio or something. So it's just all these different Black people that came from all these different experiences. And it was probably the best 3 years. While I was there, I'd also note when it comes to picking a law school, if you want to be an attorney, a lot of law schools aren't supportive like Howard is. Most aren't. Like you hear stories about students sabotaging other students because it's all based on a curve system. So people taking pages out, giving people wrong notes on purpose just so they won't do well on their tests. Whereas at Howard, it was all about supporting each other. It was all about family. And they ingrained that in us from day one. And it was actually Charles Hamilton Houston who said that a lawyer can either be a social engineer or a parasite on society. And Hustle runs by that standard. And I knew that in my journey to becoming a juvenile delinquency attorney, and delinquency means basically kids who are involved in criminal proceedings, like Aaron was talking about earlier, the group home kids. I knew that I wanted to serve my community. So I knew it was also the right school for me. So after my first year at Howard, I was able to go to South Africa and do a study abroad program, which was dope. Howard just had a lot of opportunities, and that was one that I definitely took advantage of. And then after that, I interned for Maryland Office of the Public Defender in their juvenile delinquency division. While I was there, I noticed that a lot of the kids had dependency backgrounds. So that means they came from the child abuse and neglect system, and then they were funneled into this juvenile delinquency system, which then funnels in to just a further path of destruction. So I thought, well, if I can help kids in dependency court, then there wouldn't be a need for me to do like delinquency or criminal law with adults. So after I knew that I would need to pass the bar in order to become a dependency attorney, because you're helping people in court. So so after Howard, I studied for the bar, but the problem is I didn't know how to study. That's why I took the LSAT prep course. So I took a bar prep course, but that still wasn't enough. I studied all wrong. So the second time, because I failed the first time, I really kind of listened to Aaron and my sister-in-law, Ashkia. And again, with Howard, there was this, they had kind of like their own bar prep help where they'll help you like read your essays and stuff. So for 6 weeks, I was literally looking at flashcards in the morning. After I went through all my flashcards, I would do 50 MBEs, which are personal choice questions that are on the bar. And then any cards that I missed, that concept I put on a card, it would go into my flashcard pile. And then I did 3 essays. Anything that I missed, put on a flashcard, went in my flashcard pile. The rest of the day, I'm memorizing the flashcards. Until I memorize all the flashcards, I'm not done. So I finally learned how to study. With that being said, if you know how to study, like you're already ahead of the game. So I got burnt out after studying for the bar for 6 weeks. And then with the bar, I think that they can quiz you or test you on like 12 different legal subjects or something. But there's certain subjects that are more likely to be on the bar than others. So I made sure that the ones that were likely to be on the bar, I knew down packed. So I studied those first. Now, after 6 weeks, I still had 2 weeks I could continue to study, but my brain was like, no, you're going to veg out to dance moms because I'm done studying. So, anyways, the bar was hard. My time's up. So I just want you to know that I did pass the second time. I figured out how to study. And now I'm in the dependency court system, and I can continue to, I guess, kind of tell you what that's like and my role as a dependency attorney, because I do feel like I make a difference if you come to the breakout room. So thank you.
We have Charan dancers. I call him Crew, and he hits me sometimes. We train every morning, and He likes to hit people. So, anyways, he is the founder and lead trainer of Dancer Muay Thai in Riverside, but he's done so much more than that, right? So let me go ahead and highlight him and let him tell the difference, and also maybe why he likes to hit people. All right, go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you. First, just the first question, I like to hit him because he's got a mouth on him. But yes, my name is Charan Dancer, and I'm the founder of Dancer Muay Thai. It's interesting following two lawyers because when I got into the business, I went to school, UC Riverside. My goal was to become an attorney. So I majored in political science, business administration, with the goal of, unfortunately, not like our previous two speakers, to help as many people as possible. It was to make all the money. I mean, all of it, not a little bit, not half of it, all of it. That's what I wanted. And while I was there, I graduated with my degree in political science. I then took a sales and finance position in sales in real estate and mortgage, because I was told, again, that's where the money was. So I spent years putting mortgages, purchasing properties for people, refinances, credit, you name it. This was in the early 2000s. So people were very happy. I was very happy. I bought $1,000 watches. I had the lifestyle that I thought I wanted. The only difference is that come 2007, 8, and 9, as many of you may know, that's when the market crashed. And one of the things I realized was not only was the market crashing, it was crashing because of the things that me and my other coworkers were doing. We were putting people in loans we knew they could not afford. We were putting people in refinance situations that we knew that they could not get themselves out of. We were helping them establish debt, even though we were telling them we were helping them get their debt clear, and that we were putting them in a better financial situation. And the thing that was the most upsetting when I look back on that is that we were predominantly doing this to the African American and the Latino community. I ravaged through Riverside, San Bernardino, Ontario, Fontana, Rialto. Those were the areas that I made the most out of because they trusted a person that looked like me. And when the market crashed, when people then came back and called me and asked, hey, my house was valued at $300,000. Now it's valued at $180,000. My mortgage payment was $1,000 a month because of what you did for us. Now the mortgage payments are $2,700 a month. What can you do? And my response was nothing. You chose this loan, even though I was their expert trying to help them find a better way. I wrote it off as they were adults. They put themselves in this position. I got my commission. That's how the game is played. When I started seeing people losing their homes, seeing people getting their homes foreclosed on, I then moved into an area where I was doing refinance adjustments. So I was essentially now suing myself. I was telling people, hey, you know that loan I put you in? Well, let me go ahead and show you all the ways that my company did you wrong. Now, if you just give me another $1,200, $1,500, $2,000, we can fix all the things that we did. And then people would do that. And then we would maybe get their mortgages down a couple $100 and maybe buy them 6 months to a year before they were fully foreclosed on. And it was just a perpetual cycle. My concept was, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to. So why shouldn't I be the one who gets paid from this? While that was going on, I had been training martial arts since I was 11 years old. And one of the tenets in that is community, helping people, not just learning how to fight. It's not just learning how to prepare yourself for battle. It is about a team atmosphere, learning how to protect others, your family, your community, your tribe, if you will. And all those things have been drilled into me since I was 11 years old. And yet here I am doing the complete opposite. A few years later, I realized that this lifestyle was not only good for me and my community, it was literally killing me because I would come home angry, dealing with clients, dealing with deals that fell apart. I would then go to the gym and I would train and throw people around and put as much weight into things as I can. I got called Mr. Incredible, not because of how good I was, and I'm good, but they called me Mr. Incredible because, like the Pixar movie, I would be the big guy in his little office, hunched over, and as soon as he got out and could throw people around and use his muscles, that's what made him happy. And that's what I did until I was introduced to Mount Rubidoux through my wonderful girlfriend now. She brought me in, and from my time at Mount Rubidoux and speaking with her, I realized that that wasn't the path that I wanted for my life. So I made some transitions. I moved into insurance. I used that time to help people, to build my credentials. I increased my training. So I went from Taekwondo, belts in Taekwondo to Hapkido. Then I added Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo. I then spent years doing Tai Chi. And then I finally gravitated to the art that I teach now, which is Dutch kickboxing and Muay Thai. And then the kind of the flip that finally occurred was two things. I was training people part-time at a facility. And I have a tendency, some of my students here on the Zoom will attest, to train people hard. I want you to not only know the material, I need you to understand it, because this could be something that saves your life. I'm particularly hard on kids and the women, not because I'm a bully, Alexander, but because they're the ones who are most vulnerable. I can walk down the street 10, 11 o'clock at night, not gonna have somebody giving me too many issues. While I was teaching a class, 3 young girls, ages about 16, 17, had complained that the class was incredibly hard. They were so exhausted, they immediately went home, passed out, and it kind of ruined their weekend because they couldn't go out and party. The following week, I took it down a notch. I remember being that age, and then I let them kind of relax in terms of what they were supposed to do and the rest of the team. That same week, or that same night, those 3 girls went out, they partied, they did like kids do. They went to a party where drugs were consumed. One of the girls got so high, she came home. She tried to hide the fact that she was high by taking a bath, high logic, and then drowned in the bath. When I heard that, I kept thinking to myself, what if I had put in that same kind of energy that I did last week, this week? Maybe she'd still be here. And then it just kind of made me reevaluate all the other things I've been doing. Am I helping people, or am I just helping myself? So I left the business aspect of insurance and mortgage. I went on the advice of my girlfriend and started teaching full time. It was rocky because you're going from benefits, $1,000 checks, to finding clients, asking people to pay you on time, wondering if their check is going to bounce. But then you learn how to work not only for yourself, but how to build your business. And that was the other thing that I think was missing, was a lot of Black businesses aren't taught how to do that. We're told we can have our own businesses, that no one teaches us how to run a business. One of the things being, we're not always going to be your friend. We have to be a business owner.
Yeah, for real. So let's save some of the game for the breakout rooms. And that's amazing, it's powerful. Thank you for that. Let's give it up for Charan or crew. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have one of my closest friends, right? And one of the smartest guys I know, right? And I don't need to read that, but this one part I need to read specifically because the brother has this big title here, okay? So Kevin M. Carrington, MBA, he is the CEO of Carrington Case, really fancy, nice high-end Black wallets. The founder of the C3 initiative, where it teaches young Black kids how to code. and the administrative director of Loma Linda University Health Neuropathic Therapy Center. Basically, he's the boss. Okay, he's the boss, and he also is the Green Lantern. Kev, go ahead and take us away.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Alex, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this. I always love the opportunity to get together and just show and talk and discuss about the journeys that we as Black people have been through to get to where we are. I often see you as a bit of a visionary, and I've learned a lot from you, man. So thank you for pulling this together. My name is Kevin Carrington. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. Born to two parents. I'm a first generation American. I am also a fourth generation entrepreneur. I got to see my great grandfather own a bicycle company in Barbados. My grandmother owned a grocery store in Barbados. My father owned his own electronic company. And then here I am. I guess I'm going to save kind of a lot of the details for the breakout room. But what I wanted to share with you guys is it's really important, the exposure of showing people that African Americans are brilliant, they're intelligent, and they are creative. And so for me, everything that I've done in my life and everything I've had the opportunity to do is about just doing that, is showing that and going out there every day, trying to be the best version of myself first, and then to do the best work I possibly can to change my world, the community in which I live, and the people who I'm around. So currently, as Alex mentioned, I do own a professional accessories brand called Carrington. The problem I was solving there is I like fashion, I like style, and seeing that there weren't any accessories that I liked. I'm a minimalist and function, and I just decided, hey, if I don't see what I like, I'm gonna go make what I like. And so, I went out, designed a couple products, brought them to market, and the brand was started. Around the time when I started that company, I noticed that African-American kids, most of the avenues that allowed them to escape the lots of poverty and the lots of that prison pipeline that both Aaron and Amy are out there fighting to keep us and our children out of, most of those avenues to get out are lotteries. If you play ball really, really good, you can throw your name in the hat, and somebody can pick one of the names out of the 1,000 of really good basketball players, and you can become a millionaire. And so, all of those avenues, whether it's music, whether it's entertainment, whether it's sports, they're all lotteries to get successful. However, being one of my undergraduate degrees is in computer information systems. Computer information systems and technology has such a wide spread reach, and there's no lottery. If you get on a computer and you design an application that solves a problem and fixes something, one, you can start your own business and people will and solve that problem, or two, someone will buy it from you for a pretty sizable amount of money. And so I created the C3 initiative to give African-American kids an avenue to create. All I'm doing is passing that tool down to kids. And our goal is to do it for free. So we work with tech companies like Esri, Microsoft, Northrop Grumman, all the big companies you can think of, to create free programming for African-American kids to learn these tools, and then hopefully either pick up a job one day or start their own company one day in technology. My educational career after graduating with my MBA took a whole host of turns, but it led me, and I'll share a little bit of those details in the breakout room, but it led me to the healthcare. Healthcare is one of the industries today, in my opinion, that's going through a renaissance. And so I get the opportunity to help build business in healthcare, and find ways to make it more effective, more efficient, and to kind of support and raise the bottom line. So I call myself an entrepreneur. I get to do that every day. I would encourage all of you, as much as possible, if you haven't heard one thing from everyone here, money should not be your prime objective. It is definitely icing on the cake, but it's definitely not the cake. So focus up on being something different, and then focus on doing something different. And I guarantee you the money will come. Thanks again.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. You know, and I just want to appreciate you for that. What you and crew failed to mention is that I made both of y'all shirts. Okay, so nobody has to wonder. Also, my lady bought me my hoodie. So all right, now all the good credit is out of the way. We're going to move on. Now we got the Black business owners out the way. Now we had the Black doctor segment, right, of the panel. And to kick it off is one of my oldest, dearest, and that's right, bestest friends in the world, at least in my mind, Andrew James Grant Patterson, MD, wait for it, Ph.D. I had to say it like that because he used to have this long voicemail that said his whole name every time for no reason. And he didn't even have a PhD back then. It was just like 4 long names that he wanted to say. So anyways, he is a cardiologist in Cleveland, Ohio. And a fun fact, he was entering med school when I was in community college. So this brother right here is a big, big reason why I'm here. So go ahead and take us away.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Alex, man. I really appreciate you. You know, we've both been through quite a bit. This is my wife here. I gotta highlight her too, because she's also a professional in her own right, and she deserves a lot of credit because she's very successful too. And
I'm gonna introduce her in the next section, brother.
I'm
gonna introduce her in the next section. Y'all was supposed to have different cameras, okay?
We're supposed to, but you know, we're one. You know, once you get married, the two become one. So that's what happens.
My bad. Go ahead.
I want to highlight, you know, my brother Kevin and this other brother Crew, Amy, and all the other ones who've talked. And you know, it's so motivational just to hear you guys' story and to talk. And you know, I think more programs like this to highlight the present is necessary because there's a lot of people out here who are hustling. There are a lot of people out here who are taking advantage of the opportunities that are available to us. And that's really the message that I think Black history should really point to. A, people have fought to get us to the point where we are today. B, now we're at a stage where if you put yourself around the right people, if you set yourself up in the right circumstances, whatever dreams you have, you can make those possible. So that's really important. I think Alex already highlighted some of the things about myself. Obviously, I am a cardiologist. I live here in Cleveland, Ohio. I also subspecialize in cardiovascular imaging. So I do a lot of cardiac MRI and CT. I see a lot of patients, things like that. And the Lord is blessed. I think that, my story, there's not enough time to really go into it, but, I've been fortunate to get to the point where I'm at. But a couple of things I want to highlight in terms of, I think, that are helpful and meaningful to the crowd, to those who are here, that may help them along their way, those who are undergrad, who are maybe even grad school, to get them to the next level. Is, I think a huge thing is just to know your circle. I mentioned this as be aware of your contacts, okay? The 5 people who are most close to you, the 5 people who are influencing you, you talk to more on a regular basis, including your parents, your relatives. You have to really critique these people at this stage in your life, okay? Because your mindset is going to be hugely influenced by the people who are around you, okay? I'll give you a huge story. Back in 2008, I was applying to medical school, okay? I was in California, I was doing a PhD, but I hadn't gotten into medical school. I was also trying to get into medical school at the same time. And I had a few friends at that time that were helping me out. Backtracking a little bit, this was the 3rd time I had really applied to medical school, partly because I did so poorly on the MCAT for 2 times in a row. And finally, the 3rd time around, I got a score that was decent enough so I could at least come to the table and negotiate. So needless to say, I was in a situation where I was doing a PhD, where I was doing this program, but I was trying to apply to medical school. But because of the politics of that, I ran into a lot of roadblocks. Because, why would we let you into medical school? You're currently doing a PhD. This doesn't make sense. You're going to go into medical school and not finish your PhD. This is what I was told. But I had some friends around me, such as Alex and Paul and another gentleman, Paul Redisakira, who really kind of influenced me to say, listen, in this situation, you need to keep pushing forward. You need to go to the table. You need to make things happen. God has something here for you. So fast forward, I was living in California at the time. I ended up having an acceptance letter to Meharry in Nashville, Tennessee. And I was about on my way out to say, okay, I'm going to move there to do medical school, because medical school seemed like was my aim at that time. But after talking to my brothers, Alex and Paul, and even talking to some other mentors who gave me some really kosher advice in terms of how to navigate the system, I then presented a story that was appropriate. So instead of just quitting and just going to do the medical school, I presented the acceptance letter that I had from this other institution to the current institution I was at that time, which was Loma Linda, and said, listen, I know I'm doing a PhD here. I got accepted into the medical school program at another institution. I would like to stay here. I think my mission, my goal, everything is here. Could you, accommodate me? And through negotiation and so forth, things worked out. I was able to do MD, PhD, and that helped me because it allowed me not to take on so much debt in the process, because they ended up paying my tuition for medical school, which was a huge, huge burden, as you can imagine. So what I mean is having the right contacts is hugely, hugely important, okay? Because there's going to be roadblocks at every step of the way. There's just going to be challenges, as particularly at certain stages of your life, you're going to encounter situations that are going to be a little challenging. So you have to be sure you're around the right people who are motivational, who are pointing you in the right direction, who have your best interest at heart, not their interest, but your interests at heart, who see your potential and able to push you along that way, even when you're second guessing what you're doing and your dreams and goals. Okay. I'm not sure what my time is. That 5 minutes is quick.
You got 1 minute. Tell them about the you getting rejected from undergrad.
Oh, okay. So let's get to undergrad. So undergrad, now this is going to hit home for some of you guys. Now, when I when I got out of high school, I didn't do so well. Okay. And when in order to go to college, you got to take ACT where I was living, in some places SAT, but I had to take an ACT test. Okay. My score was 18 coming out of high school. That tells you the level of commitment and my mindset at the time, which was poor. I wasn't there mentally. So, I went down to a school called Oakwood University down in Huntsville, Alabama, and they saw my grade, GPA and so forth, and they saw my scores from ACT. And they said, there's no way we can take you. You need to go back to community college and work on your GPA. So lo and behold, that's what I did. I went back to Kentucky. I was living in Kentucky at the time, and I went to community college. But I was kind of sidetracked at the time. I was doing a lot of things I had no business doing. I was involved with the wrong kind of people who were involved in drugs and involved in gangs and involved in all kind of mess that also bled over to me. And as a result, I was not focused on the journey. I wasn't focused on the path that I felt God had for us, And so, needless to say, my GPA was not so great. Let me just show you real quickly. If you highlight this, brother Alexander, I don't know if you can see this very clearly. So you know that I'm not lying to you. Oh, is it backwards? It probably is. But my GPA, when I finished let me make sure you see my name so you know I'm not lying. Where is it at? It's somewhere over here, right? It says
yeah, we see it.
Andrew Patterson. It's like right here, Andrew Patterson. That's me. Okay, this is in Kentucky. You say my GPA. This is in 2000. This is the year of 2000. Everybody remember Y2K, but look at that GPA, 1.6, my friends.
Listen, the brother pulled out receipts. Okay.
You have to tell the truth. Now let's show you evidence. You may not believe me, so I have to bring out some evidence to help you. All the students here, you see this. So 1.6 GPA. Okay. So after all that, when I left Kentucky, went down to Oakwood, made purpose.
We're gonna save it for the breakout room.
Hey, there we go.
For the breakout room.
There we go.
Hey, that's a note to end on right there. All right.
Very good. Let me get you.
All right.
This is a better story to me.
All right. Now. Next, we have Dr. Patterson's beautiful and accomplished wife, Dr. Patterson. Now they extra fancy because they got two doctors in the same house. Fun fact is they had the best wedding I'd ever been to. Okay, and I've been married twice, so it was great. Also, they just had a baby. So I'm super glad that they made the time to come and share their stories. So Dr. Patterson, please tell us your story.
I actually come from a lineage of physicians, so there was a little bit of unspoken pressure to become a doctor in my family. I went to NYU for undergrad, which was really cutthroat. In one class, in my science class, there's a class of 350 people and one professor. He had a microphone and everything, and he didn't know us by name. We had a clicker and we had our ID number, and it was in an auditorium, so you can easily feel intimidated. People, right before an exam, people ask each other a question and give each other the wrong answer. It was pretty bad in that aspect. So during undergrad, I made sure I found my, so close. I found my group of friends who had the same mindset, and we studied together. We ate together. We made a lot of sacrifices. That's another thing. So finding support, family support. If you don't have family support, find that friend support. If your friend likes to go out and party, Thirsty Thursdays, Taco Tuesdays, instead of going to those things, you go to the library and you study and you find your friends, because misery loves company. So finding friends that have the same mindset, and making those sacrifices. I always told myself short-term sacrifices for long-term goals. Our professors had a thing of having an exam right before a holiday or right after a holiday. So like Halloween would be like on a Monday and the exam would be on a Tuesday or something. It was just like, it was horrible. So you always have to, think of the big picture and say this is only temporary, because it really is. What else? Another thing is balance. So I had the issue of I would study 7 days a week, but I burnt out early, and it took me to burn out for me to realize I need to take a day of rest.
Amen.
And I married someone who is a true believer of that in the Adventist faith of taking a day of rest. So he still keeps me in check on days that, on Sabbath, I want to, studying for my boards like a year or 2 ago and 2 years ago, and I'd want to study on Sabbath and be like, no, take a day of rest. And it's really important, because then you recharge yourself, and you need that time to rest so that you can get back on track and get to your goal. What else?
Tell what kind of doctor you are.
Huh?
Tell what kind of doctor you are.
Oh, I'm an eye surgeon. My husband wanted me to tell you guys I'm an eye surgeon. I did follow my father's footsteps. Another thing that's really important, meditating or praying. I previously was Catholic. I'm currently Adventist. Praying is really important. If you don't believe in anything, then meditate. You need an outlet, that's important. Networking, start early. The more people that you meet that are in the field, the better off you are. We're people who are accomplished or who reach their goals. We always want to help others, because we have to give back, because we didn't do it by ourselves at all. We had that networking and having people that supported us, and we want to do the same. So go to those conferences, go to that gala, or go to those meetings and stuff. So meet people within your field. So just to wrap it up, find support, find like-minded people, stick with those people who are going to bring you up, not people who are going to be like, hey, you can study tomorrow. Let's go out tonight. Let's go drinking. No, just find people who are on the same path as you. You have to make that sacrifice. Surround yourself with like-minded people and meditate.
Amen.
And find a good mentor.
So BJ is a film producer and a screenwriter in Dayton, Ohio. And he is in possession of what I call the fairest beard in the land. See, some of us are just, struggling, but my brother over there is thriving, right? So he's a longtime friend and a really great creative influence, right? I used to go over to him and Theo's house and just feed off of their creative energy. And so without further ado, I'm gonna give you BJ Taylor.
Hey guys, like Alex said, my name is Ben Taylor. My friends call me BJ. I'm an indie film producer based out of LA primarily. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to my journey, it has not been a straight path. But when I look backwards, I didn't think it was a straight path, but clearly it was. Everything is very much connected to each other. And now that I'm where I'm at, it definitely feels like I'm meant to be here and I'm going in the right direction. I was born up in Sacramento, and then up until about the age of 8, I was raised in Southern California, actually. So we lived from, everywhere between Baldwin Hills and Sylmar. And around 8, when my younger brother was born, my parents decided to move us up to Northern California. And that was probably one of the biggest changes in my life, huge moment, because here I'm coming from, hanging out with my cousins all the time, going to schools where there's Black kids, Mexican kids, Filipino kids, like around diversity and people that look like me and have similar experiences to me. And then my parents moved us up to these areas where predominantly white schools, white neighborhoods, white areas. And, I'm already kind of naturally a quiet, reserved person. And to remove me from my place of comfort and to put me in these areas at that age, it was very difficult. I didn't make friends for a while. And, a lot of the areas in the schools I went to schools, you're talking about kids that come from dentists and doctor homes, and that wasn't our home, right? We didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so, yeah, not having friends, all that, it really pushed me to really focus on my arts, drawing, performance, writing, my love for cartoons and film. And I think it also kind of taught me some perseverance, and as well as kind of figuring out, if I'm in a room or a situation where it doesn't feel like people understand me or want me around, how do I make that work to my advantage? How do I still make friends in the face of that? Eventually that kind of turned into, especially like for my younger siblings, throwing birthday parties for them. Translated to, throwing banquets in high school. Even eventually in college, I was able to work as social vice president and found that I was able to learn leadership skills along with my artistic abilities. It worked really well for events and just having a good time, parties. Again, learning how to socialize in the face of people, not necessarily wanting me to socialize with them, making them love me. It works really good for throwing parties and events. But as far as film goes, and I know I'll have to talk a lot about this in the breakout sessions, right out of college, I was in college, when the housing crisis hit the fan. And so when I finally got out, and I took my time to get out, especially because no one was getting work that was graduating. When I finally got out, I still had a hard time finding work, doing what I wanted to do at the time. Wanted to be a counselor, so I had a degree in religious studies, but then also I kept my art, so I had a degree in graphic design as well. And so not find any jobs working as a counselor. Eventually, I found some work doing graphic design stuff, but it still wasn't connecting. And then that's when you'll hear from my partner up next, Theo. That's when Theo was like, hey, man, why don't you come out to LA with me and let's do this film thing? And I got to tell you, the moment that I did that, everything kind of connected. I realized that the resiliency that I was raised up in to fight through situations and through cultures and societies that don't really, look at me as someone on the same level, that helped me, because the indie film hustle is no joke. You should not get into film unless you're willing to grind and you're willing to keep fighting through and perfecting your craft, regardless of what people think of you. But then also at the same time, you have to listen to what people say, find the truth in their criticisms, and improve what you're doing. I learned that resiliency. I learned that just my abilities for event planning, my knowledge of art, my natural tendency to being creative, it works really well in the film capacity, where I'm collaborating with a group of creatives, and essentially creating a film is just a really big event. On top of the fact that after you make a film, you have tons of events, premieres and rap parties and all kinds of stuff like that. So anyways, that's just kind of a little bit of my winding road to the film industry. And I'd love to talk more about the film game with you in the breakout room.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. You did that. All right. So next is My kids call him Uncle Spidey, and because he's really good with cameras. He's really good with not getting the girl. He's also good with comics. Anyways, he got me into comics, and he's the most kind and creative brother I know. So without further ado, Theo, take us away.
First of all, I just got to say, Alex, not only thank you for inviting me to this, but I tell you all the time, man, just knowing you over these years since I moved out to California, I didn't really know anybody. When I came out here and getting to know you, like, man, being there at your PhD thing, man, like, to me, that was one of the most special things I've ever seen in my life. I know there's a lot of other people here in this group as well who have known even longer, man. So I think, to me, like, you literally are Black history, just like everything that you're about, seeing the professor, seeing the parent, being the homie. I think that's so cool. So thank you again for just having me.
Thank you. I forgot, he's a director, producer, fancy pants filmmaker. This is this guy. All right,
Also,
go ahead, brother.
Also, thank you for giving me an excuse to actually put on a button-down shirt. I haven't worn one of these in about 18 months, so thank you for that. My name is Theo. I was born in Dallas, the son of a pastor. When I was 7 years old, I went to Universal Studios out here in California. We didn't really travel out west, but I got a chance to go to Universal Studios, and I wrote the Backlot tour. A lot of you guys probably have wrote that. And I remember, like, being on that tour, and, like, they take you like through like the sets and stuff like that. I remember, like, seeing people like shooting something. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but, like, I want to do that. I have no idea what it is. I want to do that. Go back to Texas. Obviously, Texas is not like a hub for filmmaking. But I knew I wanted to study film. Also, math wasn't my strong point. So I was like, what's the path of least resistance, really? I look at a magazine for one. I'm at Seventh-day Adventist, so I look at one of the Seventh-day Adventist magazines, and I see this picture on the back of this Black guy holding a camera, and he's like, "I shot a movie in Ireland, and you can too." I'm like, boom, that's it. I'm going to Southern. That literally was it. It wasn't anything more special than that. I go to a school called Southern. It's in Tennessee. Don't know anyone there, and I'm like, okay, this is my chance. I can be me. I love comics. I love nerd stuff. Probably on my second or third day while I'm there, I'm talking about the Muppets, and I see somebody else with this big old Muppets belt buckle. It's the guy you guys just heard from, Ben Taylor. And immediately right after that, we became homies. I would make short films. He would star in them. He's got a great producer mindset. So, like, just learning and all that stuff from them. I failed some classes there, passed some classes there, ended up graduating, ended up getting a job in Kentucky. I think somebody else was from Kentucky. I moved to a super small town where I was the 1,897th person to move there in a place that is not quite the most creative, nurturing environment. And after being there for a year, I was like, God, I got to get out of here. I have to move to LA by the end of the year. Like, that's why I got in this thing. I want to move to LA. God had a bit of a different timeline for me. Approximately 8 days after that, I got a call from a friend who was like, "It's super random, but I've got a job out here in LA or in California. Would you be interested in coming out?" I'm like, wow, God, that's amazing. First call I make after that, hit up BJ. And I'm like, hey, man, you want to try to do this movie thing for real? Go out here to California. Ended up moving to LA. So much fun, lots of struggles, lots of terrible jobs that I never even thought I would do. Like, all those film stories of being sent across town for slippers. BJ and I would be like stuck in like warehouses, like going through actors' clothing to sort, like all this stuff. But I just love movies so much. I was able to start making like my own shorts, working on like commercials as a production assistant, which is like the lowest of the low. I started being able to move up to be what's called a assistant director. I started producing all these things like this. So it was just really cool to be working on my own stuff while growing, learning from people just much smarter than me, in this incredible city of LA. And where I am now, you know, I always think about like this story. I'm not a story, but like this thing that happened to me a couple of years ago. I was producing a commercial for Universal, for NBC Universal. And we were shooting on the back lot. And I remember like shooting on the back lot, there's like, you know, 80 actors and crew and stuff like that. And I see that tram coming across. And like, I see this black kid who's like 7 years old. And I like look at him, like he looks at me, and I point at him because I was that kid. And every day to me, man, it's just one of the most amazing things. I just love being a part of these kind of stories. Right now, BJ and I are literally finishing a movie that Alex and Kevin, who just started, acted as well. And you know, like for people like, I think a lot of us, we didn't have that. I didn't know any filmmakers growing up and stuff like that. And we just kind of had to be the cavalry ourselves. And it's just incredible, like working with people when iron starts sharpening iron, and you just start connecting with people who have the same like-minded values. Like special things really happen. Special things really, really, really happen. You know, I think it's just like that. Work hard, surround yourself with people better than you, and trust God. And you know, if we're able to join a breakout room, maybe I'll be able to show you guys maybe a commercial or two, or maybe one of my first short films, which is one of my favorites, but it's absolutely terrible to everything else. But thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Uncle Spidey.
Thank you, Uncle Spidey.
What up, girl?
All right, so that's amazing. He's amazing. I was in his movie, and I convinced him I was a soldier. He had me try to play me to be a soldier with a helmet, and I was like, bruh, I have something to offer the world. Let me take my helmet off. And so he let me take my helmet off, and I got like 4 lines, but I think I killed it. Okay.
That's actually true. He did say that. He literally said, let me take off this helmet. I gotta show my face on screen.
Yeah.
Very professional.
Okay. Yeah. All right, good sir. We will see you in the breakout rooms. Thank you. Next we have my guy. He brought you stuff like Rhythm and Flow on Netflix, the remake of Making It a Band. And he's just a great dude. My kids call him, what y'all call him?
Mr. J.
Mr. J. So he's a writer and a producer in LA. And he is gonna take it away from here and wrap up our filmmakers episode.
So thank you, Dr. Sterling. First, MTV put the brakes on our show, Making the Band, so don't look for that anytime soon because it's probably not gonna happen. But my last show, Cardi Tries, is on Facebook Watch, so feel free to check that out. First of all, I want to give a shout out to this panel. Your greatness is inspiring. There's a lot of lessons here, so it's really dope. Shout out to everyone who took their time to invest in hearing our stories. I think it's very important that you all are getting the chance to hear all these different professionals. So the first thing I want to do before I kind of get into my story is I want you to kind of vibe with me real quick. So I'm going to ask 3 questions and take like 7 or 8 seconds. I know my time is tight, but take like 7 or 8 seconds in your head and just kind of think about some of these moments that from these questions I'm asking. I'll try to make it make sense in the end. So the first question is, have you ever been in a physical fight and do you remember the feeling? Go back to your memories. The second question, have you ever been attracted to someone and decided to make a move? And the last one is, have you ever had a moment where you literally did not give a F? So the reason I ask those questions is because it's more than a simple yes or no. There's a story to it, there's a lot of context involved, and which basically makes us all storytellers. So when you can deliver the story correctly, you have the power to shape somebody's perspective. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to get into the game, because I saw a lot of things. I was fortunately traveled around the country as a child and got to experience being around a lot of different people, and I was able to consume that in different stories, different environments. The other question I asked myself is, have you ever had somebody say, I never thought about it like that? That usually feels good when you break something down to somebody and they say that to you. So as far as my background goes, I know I kind of touched on that I moved around the country a little bit. That was because my father's a football coach. He coached in college and the NFL. And my mother, she's a counselor. She was a counselor in high school and a counselor in college. So with that comes a lot of life lessons, a lot of stories, a lot of, motivation, and just learning how to overcome adversity. And, I knew I wanted to do something that I enjoyed, and I wanted to share my perspective. And, I found myself telling my friends and, people around me stories that my parents shared. And I was like, yeah, because this means something to me, and I want to do something that means something to them. So as far as coming out here, early 2000s, got out of college, couldn't find a job to save my life. I thought I was hot stuff too. I was like, yeah, young Black dude, coming fresh out of college. I went to the University of Pittsburgh. A lot of people took to my writing and my work in the screenwriting world in Pittsburgh. So I was like, okay, I'm about to tear it up, and it was nothing. So in the meantime, I'm back in Chicago / Evanston, Illinois. And I saved my money up for like 2 years so I could come to LA. And, that required, I literally like did not buy clothes for like 2 years. And I know my gear was terrible. I go to the clubs with my boy, and, I had to have some personality in there because I didn't have much else to offer. My dates were usually probably less than $20. So anyways, there's a lot of ups and downs in between that time. So I'm gonna just kind of give you the microwave version of some like lowlights and some highlights. The lowlights, I pretty much got fired before, and I never thought that would happen because it's like my work ethic is too strong. I'm good at what I do, but really it came down to a certain matter of creativity and politics. Which leads me to another part of it is that, in the industry, there's some bad people. I mean, there's bad people in every industry, but, when you have creatives, like because of the power that comes with media, there's some cutthroats. They will take you out quick. The other neg I would say is jumping from job to job if you're working on projects. Because you might be on a show that goes for 3 or 4 months, and once that thing wraps up, unless you have something lined up like the next week, you're going to experience some periods of unemployment. Unless you're on a staff job, which is more continual for like shows that run throughout the year. But usually the bad part about that is that they generally don't pay as well. So now let's get to the better part of the game. I would say some of my personal highlights was I created a short film on a very important topic, it was about HIV and AIDS in the Black and Latino community, and excuse me, and it premiered at the Pan-African Film Festival, and it was later eventually televised. And that was like my first major thing as a writer to ever be televised. And, I was at Revolt TV working under Diddy for a couple years. And, that was dope because, I had an opportunity to meet and produce interviews for some of my favorite artists. Excuse me. And, sorry. All right, so yeah, let me go ahead and wrap this up. I would say some of the most important things that I've taken from this experience is use bad days and bad decisions, because those usually make the best stories. It's real. And also cultivate relationships. Try to start to get to know somebody before you need something from them. If they're doing something that you're interested in, reach out, say, I want to learn what you do. And last, be consistent with your work and conscious of your audience. And that's my time. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. So next, so that's our filmmakers, and this next part, our last speaker, is the category doesn't exist. I gotta make it up. So the category is gonna be called most bestest and most specialist. person in the world. Okay. Don't tell my mama. So this sister right here, Sandra Brooks, Ph.D. My daughter calls her Auntie Sandra. She's a licensed clinical psychologist. She's also, if you watch her Instagram, a gourmet vegan chef, right? And one of my greatest and most special influences. It was her and Andrew that both kind of like just shattered what I thought was possible in life. And so now I'm gonna blame it on COVID. We pretty much just share memes with each other. But in my mind, we're greatest of friends. So I will leave you to it. Sandra, do your thing and bless us.
Hi, everyone. I'm just so excited to be here today. Thanks, Alex, for the invitation, Dr. Sterling. And, it's just my privilege and my honor to be here. So as Dr. Sterling said, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I can't tell you exactly when I decided that I wanted to become a psychologist, but I do know that our life experiences shape us. And I'm also a believer that each of us is born for a specific purpose and a specific reason, so that we are born with some of the abilities and capabilities we need to become what we were meant to be. And I think both of those things are true in my case. And so I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my backstory, because it will help you to understand how I came to be who I am. So I was born in Toronto, Canada, to immigrants. My parents both came from Jamaica as young people in their 20s. They met at a boarding house and they ended up getting married, and the rest is history. My parents and my close family members will tell you that I was born a force to be reckoned with. My dad didn't even have a chance to get to, after parking the car, to get back to the hospital room before the doctor came out and said, "You have a girl, Mr. Brooks." My mom told me that I learned to walk. The way that I learned to walk is that there was a young teenager that was at our house for lunch one day, and he was across the room and he taunted me with some food. And so I literally got up for the first time, walked across the room and grabbed it from him and walked back. Nothing much has changed. I still make moves for food. I was born like competitive, I'd say. I hated to lose. And I remember my brother learned that the hard way, because one day we were trying to race up the stairs and I realized that he was beating me. So I helped him to lose by pushing him. I didn't mean for him to break his arm, but that's what happened. So I always have had this internal drive. So in any case, what I wanted to say is that when I grew up in, like I said, in Toronto, or a suburb of Toronto. So when my parents first came to Canada, they lived in the city, but as people trying to get ahead, there was this new housing complex that opened up in this place called Mississauga, and there were startup homes. And when I go back there now, they look like little mini houses. But there were a lot of people from our church who lived there, and none of them had a car. So there was one man in our neighborhood who he was like a Sanford and Son kind of guy. So he actually owned a school bus, a blue school bus for that matter. And we would all go in that school bus to grocery shopping on Thursdays and to church on Saturdays. So that would give you the small sense that I did not come from a privileged background, but I guess being of West Indian descent, we did not know that we were not like it. We thought we were just the stuff. I didn't even realize that I was poor, And in the neighborhood that I grew up in, it was very diverse, and people of all ethnic backgrounds. And I remember that every once in a while, a lot of immigrants, and then there were some white people in the neighborhood that weren't rich. Let's say they weren't rich white people. Every once in a while, one of those kids would decide that they would want to call us the N-word, and we would all get together and we just jump them, beat them up, go home. The next day they would ring our doorbell and say, "Hey, can Sandra come out to play? Can Danny come out to play?" And it was all good. So those were my first experiences with race. The school that I went to in elementary school was it was multi-ethnic as well, but more on the white side. And I was always like an avid reader. And so when it was time for teachers to place, the teacher to place kids in a reading group, I was in like the top reading group, you know? But when it was time for her to place kids in an enrichment program, I was not included. She told my mother that, you know, well, Sandra's not gifted. She has to work hard. But I knew in my heart that that little Asian girl, Juna Kim, I knew that little Indian boy, Robin, and that little white boy, Philip, were not smarter than me. I knew it inside myself. And I think that caused me to push even more. So by the time I got to middle school, my parents decided to send me to a private school, not because we were rich or privileged by any means, but because they had faith and wanted me to have a Christian education. And so I started going to this little bitty private school where they happened to film Degrassi Junior High for everybody who's fans. And at that school, that's where I started having my first Black teachers. But coming from that public school where I knew in my heart that people didn't expect me to be successful, I was also very driven, to the point where they thought my parents were like those tiger parents. And, but they're like, no, it's not us, it's just her. So in any case, by the time I got to high school, I ended up going to another private high school that was a church school. And that school happened to be Black, Filipino, ethnic whites, and then a few like random what we call real white people. And in that experience, I was privileged to have Black teachers who really believed that we could achieve and succeed. And that was important because it didn't take me long for me to realize the difference between the kids who attended my school and the Black kids who attended like public school, for whom the teachers only expected them to, you know, be good at sports or to take shop and, you know, hands-on things, which there's nothing wrong with, except, you know, no one's telling you that you could be a doctor or a lawyer. They're like, oh, that's great. You should, you know, go on ahead and take those general classes. You know, I think you'd make a good, you know, whatever. But it was never, you know, anything professional. So how did I decide that I wanted to become a psychologist? I remember as a child, I think I was a weird child. I used to watch talk shows a lot. I'm gonna date myself. I used to watch Oprah and Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, any problem people had on the show, at some point, they'd always go to the psychologist who would give the same kind of advice that I would probably give, but it seemed like people believed them more because they had a PhD. So I just figured to myself, well, if I want to give advice, I need to get like that PhD so people will listen to what I have to say and I could, you know, be like on Donahue or something. So another thing I think that shaped me was at the church that I grew up in, you know, so I lived in a predominantly white, you know, we lived in the Great White North, but our church was the Caribbean North. It was a very Black church, you know? And so in that church, at one point, there was like a lot of issues with teen pregnancy. And so we had a pastor that believed in family life, and he would have all these different programs about family life. And I realized at that point, don't know why I was thinking those thoughts as a kid, but I was like, Black people, you know, they are open to psychology. They're not gonna go to a therapist, but, you know, they will listen to this information in this context. So I think that's where I developed this idea that I wanted to become a psychologist to reach people that look like me in non-traditional ways in settings where they could, you know, really receive this information. So that became a dream of mine. So in high school, I told you that I had a lot of Black teachers. I had one he was a young Black guy whose dream was to go to medical school, but he came from a single parent home and he didn't have the money. And so he did the next best thing. As a teacher at that academy, he determined that he was gonna make sure that all of us were successful when we got to university. And so in high school, he would give us like these long papers to write, only essay questions. And he just really invested in us. So one day when he asked me, what did I want to do? What was my plan? And I told him I wanted to be a psychologist. And his answer was, girl, Black people don't go to psychologists. Why don't you go to med school? And I was like, well, I knew that I didn't want to go to med school. So in my mind, somehow, the next best thing was to be a lawyer. And so when I went to undergrad at Oakwood University, which is a historically Black college, or now university, my major was English pre-law. I had a gift for writing, and so I figured I'll be English pre-law. And that was my major until I started taking this history class. And somehow that made me realize, I don't know why I thought that law school would be like this history class, but I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not interested in learning all these facts. Like, this is just not the way I like to learn. I want to help people. And so why don't I just be a psychologist? I mean, that's what I wanted to do in the first place. So being unwilling to make the full commitment, I ended up double majoring in English and psychology. And over time, I kind of decided that I was going to be a psychologist. So the last thing that I want to say is, I remember at one point, as an adult, or maybe like when I was at the end of high school, I ended up looking at this book that I had. It was a school days book. And it's those books where you have, what grade you're in and what you want to be when you grow up and all that kind of stuff. And I looked back at my school days book in grade 3. And in there, in grade 3, I said that I wanted to be a psychologist, a writer, and interior designer. I knew at that point as a 3rd grader what I wanted to be, but somehow life had taught me that I couldn't be what I wanted to be. And so I just want to say to all of you, before we go to the breakout, there's a poem by Langston Hughes that really inspires me, and it says, "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to for if dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow." So my just message to all of you today is pursue your dreams. It can happen.
Good job, Auntie Sandra. I am savvy and I am Black history.
All right. Yes, that is my daughter, Savannah. And thank you, Sandra. That was better than I could have expected, right? Who knew that you inspired me to get a PhD, but Ricky Lake inspired you? You know what I'm saying? Who knew? Who knew that we all owe ourselves to daytime TV? All right, amazing. All right, thank you. Thank y'all. I'm pretty sure everybody has questions and more to say. And I tried to keep it at 5 minutes for everybody, just so you can get kind of the scope of like these different kind of things and these different professions and how some people set off for one things and they end up doing other things. Like, I hope that you got something out of it.